Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I think Jamie, are you with us? What have I done? Just about got you. Let me just see if I can hear you a bit better. Bear with me a second. All right, I just can't hear you at the moment, Jamie, so I'm just going to try and get you unmuted. Well, I don't know if you've got a button there to unmute yourself.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now. Great.
Yep.
Perfect.
How are you, Dan?
Well done. Great, good. Well, thanks for joining us. We've got lots of people joining us today. We had the Foxtrot party last night, so I think there'll be a few sore heads this morning. So lots of people joining us, which is great. And today we're going to be talking about Can't Top Anything for Love, and then a few general questions for Jamie. And you'll have noticed that I've moved location. So I'm in a new race course today, but I'm inside because it was a bit cold outside. So I've moved inside into the owner's room, which is deserted. But see if you can have a guess where I am. So we've got nearly 50 people with us at the moment, which is fantastic. So the clock's just ticking along to 12 o'clock. So great to see so many people joining us today. Great. So just before we get going, just to remind everyone that, or those that haven't joined us yet this week for our sort of Foxtrot webinar week, that at the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A button. So if you press that, then you can type in any questions that you want, and I'll refer those back, or select some of them to refer back to Jamie and ask him sort of later on during this webinar. So any questions from anyone, just tap the button at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and I'll relay those on and ask those on to Jamie. So if you've not joined us before, and we've had a couple of webinars already this week, we can't see you, so your camera is turned off. You're muted, so we can't hear you either. So if you're still in your pajamas, still in bed, then it doesn't matter because no one can see what you're up to. Great. So Jamie, it's 12 o'clock now, so let's start. And great to see so many people joining us. We've got 55 people currently with us. So Jamie, just give us an update on how you are, how the family is, what you've been up to during this rather strange time.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can hear you now. You just disappeared for a second. Can you start again? We'll try that again.
Yeah, I was just saying, Dan, really, the first thing that I would like to say, and we would all like to say here, is that we hope that all of your members, all of the Foxtrot members and their families, etc., are all fit and healthy, because you know, as much as we're all missing out on sport and we're missing out on racing, I suppose fundamentally health is wealth. And really, you know, as far as we're all concerned here, we just hope that everybody is fine and healthy, and looking forward to hopefully getting back to a bit of normality.
Well, thanks, Jamie. That's very kind of you. And what have you been doing? I did ring you earlier, and I think you're in the middle of a class. Is that right?
Yeah, double maths seems to be my speciality at the moment, which sort of slightly surprises me. But it's amazing how Google refreshes your memory of a bit of algebra and what have you. So no, we've obviously trying to sort of juggle, like most people in our situations, juggling a little bit of training the odd racehorse, teaching children how to do their algebra and their spellings, sort of cutting hedges and mending doors, and sort of I suppose you become the master of all trades, or whatever, jack of all trades, master of none, probably, by the sounds of it.
Yesterday, it was my turn to teach history, and I taught Toby the history of West Bromwich Albion. Julie, my wife, she was absolutely furious. She really was. Today was geography. We did geography today. I did location of racecourses in Britain. She's just not speaking to me at the moment. I'm in real trouble.
Brilliant.
I need to plan an appropriate class for tomorrow. I think I'm doing science tomorrow, so I might need to get some tips off you later.
Science of racehorses, perhaps.
Now we are talking to Ben Brain later, so maybe I can get some tips off him. So, Jamie, let's just talk about, well, first of all, last season. What an amazing season. If this is off the top of my head, so I might be wrong. 46 winners with, 6 weeks short for the normal season. I mean, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was. It really was. I suppose if you'd asked us at the start of the season what our aims were, my aims each season are to better the previous season, and broadly speaking, through the last sort of 9 years that we've been here at Folly House, believe it or not, we have bettered. Broadly speaking, we bettered each season. So and our previous best was 35. To get 46 with 6 weeks short of the season was beyond our wildest dreams, and obviously plenty of highlights along the way. So it really was amazing. I think I'm right in saying that there was only one trainer in the country with a better strike rate than ours, having had over 45 winners. So, and that was Nicky Henderson. So, yeah, it was an incredible team effort, wonderful horses, great team of staff, and let's hope we can replicate it going into next season.
And you mentioned there about highlights. I mean, could you mention 1 or 2 particular highlights from last season?
Well, the obvious highlight was Hogan winning over the Grand National fences in the Grand Sefton. That really was absolutely incredible, and obviously set up a tilt at what would have been a go at the Grand National itself, which was a real shame that was off, because it would have been our first runner in the big race. And the way he jumped those fences in December really was a joy, and we were very much looking forward to seeing him in the Grand National, but that obviously wasn't to be. A couple of other highlights, obviously Pacify notching up 5 novice hurdle wins and winning a listed race in front of the Duchess of Cornwall at Kempton was pretty special. The Banner King Rebel won a nice listed race up at Haydock, and yeah, they were probably the 3 standout moments from the season. But no, it was a wonderful season, and something to look back on with fond memories.
Well, we're going to talk about sort of anything for love and can't top in a moment. But just before that, we've started to get a couple of questions. So let me fire one at you. Paul Sanger would just like to know about the yard and the staff and what's happening at the moment in terms of the horses that you've got in training.
Well, it's a very strange situation in the fact that obviously we were racing at the Cheltenham Festival, 1 week, and we went from racing behind closed doors to all being cancelled within a few days, really. We took the instant decision to back off all of the winter horses, knowing that there wasn't going to be racing until at least the 1st of May. We taught all the babies how to jump, got them doing plenty of jumping practice, and then turned them out. And thankfully, the weather has been kind. It's been warm enough, during the day, albeit with slightly chilly nights. We've had all the horses out in the field on their early summer holidays. We had the summer horses in full work, but then the news came through that summer jump racing wouldn't start until the 1st of July. So we had to back off them because they were all slightly further forward than ideally we'd like to have them ready for the 1st of July. So they've all gone out in the field here by day and coming in at night. And we've only been riding out 3 horses, 2 babies that were slightly further behind than some of the others, with a lead horse. And we unfortunately had to furlough the vast majority of our staff. Not really how we wanted to sort of end what was an incredible season. But we've had to furlough the vast majority of staff. And we've only got 3 members of staff, Kate, our head girl, Freddie, our assistant, and Alex, as you all know, our travelling head girl. And it's just the 3 of them and myself, and we're riding out and steam cleaning, riding out those 3 horses, steam cleaning, painting, all the usual sort of summer jobs, getting everything spick and span for when it all starts back. We're actually going to start the summer horses back into work next week, with a view to having them ready for the beginning of July. And then through May, I would have thought we'll start bringing some of the other horses back in. And by July, hopefully we'll all be back in with 50 horses ready for the season ahead.
So you mentioned obviously the summer horses there, and one of those is Carntop. So could you just give us a little bit of an update on him and how he is and what your plans are for him?
So he was in great form. We were ready to. We were just literally about to go and send him off to Ben Brains to get his soft pallet done when obviously racing was cancelled, and so we put a hold to that. Obviously the soft pallet op works best the closer to the first run you can feasibly do it. So luckily we hadn't done that. So we just backed off him, turned him out in the field. And actually he's just had his soft pallet done yesterday. One quiet week, and then we'll start him back into work next week and have him ready for June, really. If flat racing resumes first, which it's looking likely that it will, there's a chance that we might go to Royal Ascot. Maybe we might give him a spin somewhere first and then go to Royal Ascot. We've obviously got the two options: the Queen Alexandra on the Saturday 2 mile 5 race, or the Ascot Stakes, which is a handicap on the Tuesday. The Ascot Stakes on the Tuesdays are 0 to 100, and the Queen Alexandra is a conditions race. So I think he's off a mark of 98 on the flat. So we could always think about either of those two options, or perhaps both, if we're feeling sort of bold. But ultimately, he's a summer jumper, and our plan will be to go back over hurdles and perhaps fences at some point if we want to go down that route. But the chances are we'll probably stick to hurdling. He's unbeaten over the brush hurdles, so looking likely that we'll try and head back to Worcester and Southwell and try and maintain his unbeaten record over those obstacles.
Great. Well, if anyone's got any questions about Carntop, do fill in the sort of question form at the bottom, which is at the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So, Jamie, let's just move on to Anything for Love, and fantastic first season with her.
Well, incredible. And actually, talking of a bit of homeschooling, Harry was our middle child was doing a bit of art the other day, and he drew the colours of Foxtrot, and I thought he put Hogan's Height at the top of it, thinking, Hogan's Height gone and won the Grand Sefton, but he actually put Anything for Love down on the top of the piece of paper, saying he likes an unbeaten mare, which homeschooling going far better on the art front than perhaps the algebra. But anyway, she's been an absolute star this year. To go and win those 2 bumpers was brilliant, and really the world was her oyster, as it were, and the plan for her was to go to Utoxeter for a special new bonus race that had just been invented, as it were, and we were going to carry a £10 penalty in that, but hopefully she would have had every opportunity to go and win 3 bumpers, because many other horses in her situation, I'm sure, would have gone to Aintree for the Grade 2 bumper there. And we were going to try and be clever and go to the bonus race at Utoxeter, but it wasn't to be. But thankfully she's gone and won those 2 bumpers, and she's learnt to jump. She was jumping really well, and now she's out in the field, and very much looking forward to her novice hurdling next season.
So we've had a question from Richard Clark that just like to know. I sent a video, which I think you sent to me, of Anything for Love sort of schooling. Could you just explain what the process is for schooling her? Obviously, she did a little bit before going out, and then presumably she'll do a bit more when she comes back in. Is that right?
Yeah. So everyone does things in a slightly different way. What we tend to do with babies learning to jump is we get them up into the outdoor school, and we just get them simply walking over poles on the ground, so that they learn to pick up their feet and step over a pole on the ground. We put a lead horse in front of them. They tend to follow that horse, and they'll need a bit of a pat and a bit of reassurance as they look at it. They might not necessarily want to go over it to begin with, but they soon it's amazing how quickly they follow into the lead horse and step over the poles on the ground. And we do that in walk, and then we build it up into trotting, and then we might put a little cross pole in there, and they begin to learn to get off the ground, and then we go round over the poles, and then we go round over we add barrels in there and tires in there, and they start popping the barrels, and then and they'll do that on probably 2 or 3 lessons in the outdoor school, and then up over up over the barrels and the baby hurdles up on the top schooling ground. And once they're doing that 2 or 3 times very nicely, they'll start jumping the regulation hurdles. We tend to jump easy fix hurdles first. There's a up on the schooling ground. Many of you will have been up onto the lab on schooling ground, and there's a big conifer hedge on one side, which means that it's all quite enclosed and secure for the babies to go forward and encourages them to go forward and jump. And then once they're doing that nicely, we'll put them out onto the grass, wide open space, just some white wings, and they'll start going up over the rubber hurdles on the grass. Obviously, at this time of year, it's a little bit quick for doing that, and anything for Love's out in the field. But as she comes back in, she'll go back over. So they'll learn to do that, go out in the field. When Anything for Love comes back in, we'll put her back in the outdoor school and getting her over the barrels again. Once she's jumping the barrel as well, we'll get her over the baby hurdles, then the regulation hurdles on the all-weather, and then the hurdles on the grass. So when she comes back in, we'll almost go backwards slightly before we go forwards. But it's a little bit like our children, I suppose, learning the algebra. You start the sort of lesson by learning what you learnt previously before you go forwards again. So I think it's very similar to that.
Great. Well, David Smith sent in a question to ask whether or not Anything for Love might be a potential festival horse. But perhaps, without getting ahead of ourselves too much, you could just give us a bit of an outline as to what sort of programme she might have next season.
Well, you and I have a similar outlook on the careers of every horse, I think, Dan. And firstly, we want to win, and we'd rather win something small before moving forward to something big and having a target at some point towards the end of the season. So as far as she's concerned, we'll like to hopefully go and win our maiden hurdle somewhere, and then hopefully win a novice with a penalty. And if she goes and does those 2 things, then we can start to think slightly bigger and further forward. Obviously, the mare's programme has been developed to such an extent now that it's great. You've got listed races and graded races all along the way throughout the season. And who knows, it might culminate in the festival. I would say that Anything for Love's true asset would be her stamina. And obviously the mare's novice at the festival is over 2 miles. So if you're asking me here sitting in April what her likely target at the Cheltenham Festival is next season, I'd say, firstly, let's hope we can get there in one piece and having won our maiden and novice hurdle en route. But realistically, I should imagine we wouldn't be thinking about the 2 mile novice. We might be thinking about the 2 mile foal, but that isn't a novice, and we'd be taking on older mares in the process. So it may be something that the festival might be something for the year after, perhaps, than maybe next year. But listen, let's see how good she is first and see how high we can fly.
Just tell you a little story. I had a message from Claire Hart, who's looking after Anything for Love and also other Foxtrot horses at the moment. She said that normally when you introduce the horse into the field, they're a little bit timid. They sort of find where they are in the pecking order. Takes them a few days. They sort of gradually find their position socially. Said Anything for Love walked in the field, looked round and went, "Girls, I'm the boss here."
Good girl.
She's been ordering all the other mares around the moment she walked in that field, and I can just imagine that. She's tough and doesn't take any messing around. It's
she has many similar characteristics to Midnight Silver, who you and I know very well, and she was more of a gelding than some geldings, actually. Tough and hardy and honest, and listen, God loves a good mare like that.
So I know we've spoken previously about Hogan's Height, Jamie, but just, for those that obviously will be interested in him, can you just give us a very brief sort of outline as to what plans will be for him, obviously having unfortunately missed the Grand National this season?
So, so the plans will be to try and go for the Grand National 2021. And obviously we've got to work out a route to get there. I would have thought we'll start off in a handicap hurdle somewhere, a month before going back to either the Grand Sefton or perhaps the Beecher Chase at Aintree in December. And then we'll probably give him one hurdle race at some point in March, and then hopefully go to the Grand National in April. He's off a mark of 146, which we calculated is safe to get into the Grand National on all previous history of the race. And we need to be maintaining that mark of 146 or possibly improving it a pound or two. But we don't really want to be going down too much more than perhaps 145. So we have to run over fences before the Grand National. And that will be over the Grand National fences in December, either the Grand Sefton or the Beecher. But we need to be finishing realistically probably in the first 6 to maintain our mark of 146 in order to get into the Grand National next year.
Yeah. Great. Well, lots to look forward to with all 3 of our horses with you, Jamie, and really, exciting times ahead. So what I thought we'd do is just fire out some questions that we've received from those that are watching. So let's start with John Holton. Excluding the Foxtrot horses, which horse in your yard are you most looking forward to running in the coming season?
That's a very good question, especially as I don't know who's on the call and who's listening in. But I do know, Dan, that you had a meeting yesterday with Alex Frost, who I think appeared on one of your webinars. And Alex Frost has got a group of friends involved in a horse called Sovereign Duke, who is a good flat horse. And he's taken well to jumping. He's actually just on a holiday at the moment. We're going to bring him back into work in May. And we're going to try and follow a similar kind of path to that we took with Pacify this year, and trying to win a few novice hurdles en route to maybe something better in the autumn. So he'd be an interesting horse to look forward to that we haven't run. I would also say that we had a lot of babies last year that we were very much looking forward to running in the spring, but didn't get around to. And they will have had a summer off and hopefully come back bigger and stronger. So we should have an interesting bumper and novice hurdle team for next year. But I suppose, the likes of Pacify, he'll go novice chasing. He jumped fences really well. And I look forward to sort of going back over into a novice company with him, but over fences and what have you. But no, we've got a very exciting team to look forward to.
So just give us the name of Alex's horse again. Everyone was scrambling for their notebook there. Just give us that again.
Sovereign Duke.
It's gone in the notebook. Yeah.
He's by Jukebox Jury, and I think he could be an interesting side to look out for in the coming months and years ahead.
Great. So we've had a question from Pat Redmond, who would like to know, you talked about schooling. We've seen videos of other trainers sort of online on social media doing loose schooling. Do you do any loose schooling, or is it all with a rider on board?
We here in Lambourne, we don't have a facility to loose school. So any horse that we might be struggling with, we would send down to Henrietta Knight. And Hen would do a bit of loose schooling. She's got a loose school there, and she's got some top class facilities there. So if we are struggling with a particular horse, then we'll send it down to Hen's to do a bit of loose schooling. But we don't have a facility here to do that. And
Jamie, obviously, having moved to Lambourne, the facilities there are absolutely fantastic, and that seems to have been a real asset to you to be able to use all those facilities within the town. And it's obviously, the results of, I think, all the trainers in the town are excellent, but you really seem to have benefited from that move.
Certainly. I mean, when I started out, I was training from a small remote farm in the middle of Wiltshire, just south of Salisbury. And I'd been at Paul Nicholls and Nicky Henderson's and several other trainers en route, but I started out with a small number of horses, not great facilities, and I suppose made my mistakes, as we all do when we're setting up, made my mistakes and learnt from them, and luckily moved up here after a couple of years training down there. And our first runner from here won the Summer National. And then we had our first Cheltenham winner that autumn, and obviously it led on to Present View winning at the festival for us. And The facilities in Lambourn are just brilliant. The gallops are wonderful. The grass gallops are amazing. And really, yes, we haven't got a loose schooling facility, but Hen's got one down the road that we go and, there's swimming pools and water treadmills and you name it. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to train. And, we've got 50 horses, and you wouldn't be able to have the facilities that we have available to us if you've only got 50 horses. Nicky Henderson's got 200 horses and he's got amazing facilities there, and we've got similar kind of facilities available to us, but with only 50 horses. So listen, it's wonderful, and the fact that you have people boxing in from far and wide to use the gallops show how good they are, really.
So you mentioned there Nicky Henderson, and one of the questions we've received is, so you've worked with Paul Nicholls, I think pupil assistant there, you work with an assistant to Nicky Henderson, in fact amateur rider there. Did you learn a lot from them, and is your training based on what you learned on them, or have you gone out and sort of done it your own way?
I think you'd be foolish if you were at people like Nicky Henderson and Paul Nicholls and any big trainer, any successful trainer like that. I think if you start out and think you can do it better than them, then I think you'd be very foolish. So no, I suppose you take everything you can from the trainers that you've worked with and use it to the facilities that you have available to yourself. And certainly a lot of the similarities, there should be similarities to how I train to how both Paul and Nicky do it. And listen, if I can be half as successful as the pair of them, then that'd be wonderful.
So another question we've received from David Wilson's just in regard to jockeys and your choice of jockeys. He says obviously you use Gavin quite a lot, but what's the sort of the strategy with your choice of jockeys, and is Gavin sort of stable jockey, or how does that work?
So there was obviously when we first moved up to Lambourn, Paige turned up as Paige Fuller turned up as a young girl. She was our amateur jockey, and we were using Brendan Powell as our main jockey. And Brendan Powell won on Present View at the festival. He had then some personal problems that he had to deal with, and we were sort of using anyone and everyone really from top down. But certainly I felt that we needed a little bit of continuity, and it just so happened that that Gavin was riding a lot he was champion conditional, he was riding a lot for Warren Greatrex, and he and Warren had a bit of a sort of parting, and although he carried on riding a lot for him, Warren decided that he was going to use Richard Johnson as number one and Gavin as number two. And I thought it was an ideal opportunity to maybe have a cup of coffee with Gavin and get him into our team and perhaps start using him a bit more. And we ended up having a very good season together, and things really sort of materialised and went forward. He understood me, I understood him, he understood the horses. And what I love about Gavin is that it's not all about today. I remember one of the first horses he rode for us was Kalahari Queen at Chepstow, and she had been going really nicely at home, and I was very much looking forward to running her. She finished 6th in a novice hurdle at Chepstow, and I was so disappointed. And he came back in, he got off, he said, "Jamie, I like this mare. She will be all right. Today wasn't her day, but she'll have a day." She ended up that season finishing 2nd in a Grade 2 to Roxana. Roxana obviously won at the Cheltenham Festival. So, it just shows that she was a decent horse, but it wasn't necessarily about that day at Chepstow, and she was only going to improve and go forward from it. So he's a big team player. And the other jockeys that we tend to use that are team players are obviously Paige Fuller, who we've mentioned, who had a wonderful season. She's really progressed no end. She's won a few times on Hogan's Height as well for Foxtrot. And somebody that definitely needs to mention is Ben Hicks, who Paige is obviously riding out her claim. She's down to £3, and we brought Ben Hicks in, who was a £10 claimer at the start of the last season. He rode a few winners. He's down to 7 now, and he rode Hogan's Height a couple of times, and very much a team player. He understood that when he rode Hogan, it was all about having a spin over hurdles and letting him come forward on the back of that to then go to firstly the Grand Sefton and secondly the Grand National. And he rode Hogan beautifully in that. So we're lucky. We've got obviously Gavin, who doesn't claim, Paige claiming 3, and Ben claiming 7. So hopefully a good team of jockeys to call from.
And I think the other noticeable thing is you've also got a lot of jockeys that really want to ride for you. You know, obviously we've used people like I suppose Sam, Tom Cannon to great effect, and you know, you're a trainer that all the top jockeys, you know, want to ride your horses. So it must be a great position.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I would hope so. You know, I take pride in the fact that the horses are well schooled when they go to the race course, and hopefully jump well and are fit. And if they're fit and they jump well, hopefully they've got every chance in the races that we put them in. And you know, as you say, there are plenty of times that we can't use our pool of jockeys, and hopefully we work down from Richard Johnson. You know, obviously Sam Twiston-Davis rides a bit for us as well, and Darryl and Adrian Heskin. So you know, from top down, hopefully we've got a great team of jockeys, and hopefully horses that are ready to go and win for them.
Thanks, Jamie. And the last question, because I'm conscious that we're getting towards our half an hour. So do you have an update for us, or any information about when you think racing is going to resume, or what might be happening in terms of whether or not that 1st of July target, you know, is it something that we're on track for?
Well, funnily enough, I've got a conference call at 2:00 this afternoon. Every 2:00 on a Thursday afternoon, I sit on the National Hunt Trainers Committee, and we have a meeting to discuss the latest news and where we are in all of this. So I'll know an awful lot more at 3:00 this afternoon. But as it stands from our last meeting last week, the plan for flat racing is to resume once the lockdown has been lifted, and the government have given the green light for flat racing to go ahead. Now, the two of those shouldn't be too far away. The lockdown, hopefully, within the 3 weeks, and the government giving the green light soon after that. So, once flat racing has resumed, hopefully they can sort of pave the way for jump racing to come back. And the plan is for jump racing to start on the 1st of July. And even if lockdown was to continue and flat racing wasn't to start until the 1st of June, there is no, or whatever date you want to give it, there is no reason to believe that jump racing will not start on the 1st of July as planned. And the programme will be very similar to the programme that we all know and have seen on the BHA website. They're very much keen to get rid of the August break and the September break that was currently in the programme, and fill that with meetings that have been abandoned, or races that might have been abandoned in the interim. So they're very much looking forward to bolstering the current programme.
Great. Well, that all sounds good news, and hopefully lots for us to be looking forward to. Jamie, thank you very much indeed for your time. I know you're very busy and no doubt got some important classes to teach this afternoon. So thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Well, thanks, Dan. And I was just wondering whether, if you lifted the camera up slightly, we might be able to see the picture of the horse on the wall behind you, which might give more of a clue as to where you're sitting.
Do you know where I am, Jamie?
I do.
All right. Well, I can let everyone know I am at Fakenham in the Owners and Trainers, one of the rare owners and trainers that has a piano and a fireplace. Before I leave, I'll give it a little go on the piano. But Jamie, thank you very much indeed. I really do appreciate your time. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Dan.
Right, so this afternoon, we've got another webinar with Ben Brain. So I'm sure that's going to be fascinating, talking about breathing operations. So really looking forward to that. Thanks very much for joining me here at Fakenham. This afternoon, I'll be at a different race course. So thank you very much indeed for everyone for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you later on at 5 o'clock.